The DA has welcomed the arrest of the former Transnet executives Brian Molefe and Singh. The DA says although it's a bit late, the arrests are welcome. The party believes the next step must be to recoup the 41.2 billion rand in contracts awarded to companies linked to the Guptas. Let's discuss this case further now. I'm joined by DA MP Glenis Breitenbach and Karam Singh from Corruption Watch. Also joining our conversation is Brett Heron from the Good Party. Glenis, good afternoon. May I begin with you, ma'am? First, you are welcoming this decision, but you think it's a bit late.
Good afternoon, Dan, yes, and good afternoon to everybody on the platform. Certainly it's a bit late. It's wonderful news that there's finally some action. Very happy that people have been arrested and will have to face the music. But we're talking about issues that took place in 2015, and now we're in 2022, 7 years down the line. These issues were very, very fully ventilated by investigative journalists, backed by a lot of documentation and research. And 7 years is a long time. I'm not at all happy that it's taken this long to get them into a courtroom. But now that they're there, let's hope that the trial will begin. We're entitled to assume that the trial will begin very soon. It's been the practice of the investigative directorate to not arrest until you're ready for trial. So we must assume that they're trial ready and that we can look forward to a trial starting certainly this year.
Okay, let me bring you in, Karam, from Corruption Watch. Good afternoon as well. Corruption Watch has been watching what came out of the state capture, and you're one of those voices that had been saying we need to see consequences. Your reaction to the arrest this morning of Mr. Molefe and Mr. Singh in this Transnet corruption case?
Thanks very much, Dan, and thanks again for having us on the program, and greetings to the other panelists. No, I mean, absolutely. This is something which we welcome. The commission took a lot of time, the Zondo Commission that is, and there was a lot of investment. And that was an investment that we hope was well spent on uncovering what happened under state capture, giving us a full picture. And we know that Transnet was one of the case studies that came out there. And I think the criticism of the commission is what happens now, where's the accountability? And that's really where the mandate holders, the Hawks, the MPA, and others have to step forward and begin to execute their mandate. So while I understand what Ms. Breitenbach is saying about the delay and the wheels of justice do move slowly, we must give credit where credit is due to the ID now for having enrolled these cases. And we must see this as a positive outcome and development that we would expect to flow from what, from the testimony that we received at the commission. So absolutely, we think there could be additional charges that these individuals could face. And this is only in relationship to their involvement in the Transnet. We haven't even seen charges yet in relationship to their involvement at Eskom.
Yes, let's not remember that both Mr. Singh and Mr. Molefe were also executives at Eskom at some point. Thanks for reminding that, Karim. Brett, let me bring you in now from the Good Party. If my memory serves me right, you've got a legal background as well. When you saw this happening now, what did you think? Good afternoon and welcome to Today.
Good afternoon, Dan. Look, I mean, obviously the arrests and the appearance in court this morning was a very welcome development for our confidence in the criminal justice system. As Glenis said, these transactions go back actually to 2012 when this particular transaction was initially initiated. So it's a decade in the making, and so the frustrations that South Africans have with the criminal justice system and with the appearance of those who are involved in corruption get away with it is a legitimate concern, and it's really in the hands of the Hawks and the National Prosecuting Authority to restore our confidence in the criminal justice system, and that the people who are looting from our coffers are not going to get away with it. So it was a welcome step. We're really pleased that this took place, but share the frustration that it's a decade-old case.
It's a decade-old case. When you look at some of the details, I was just checking out, reminding myself, Glenis, what happened here since that time. The reality is this 93 million rand that we are talking about was about double invoicing up to consultants, not even to the people who are making the locomotives. Before you even got there, two big amounts had been paid out in June and December of 2015. It's a complex web. A complex network. How confident are you, Glenis, that when the trial resumes in October, things will move? Remember, we're talking about two gentlemen that appeared in court today, but there are several others, including the former CEO of Transnet, Siyabonga Gama.
Well, Dan, it's always problematic when you have a large number of accused. It's very difficult to keep to timelines when you have a multiplicity of accused. In this case, except that it can't be avoided, and that they're charged under the doctrine of common purpose and as accomplices, and so they must be charged together. It is a complex set of facts. All of these state capture transactions are complex sets of facts. The Guptas specialized in convoluted financial arrangements, so money was laundered through a variety of companies, through a variety of accounts. And so the tracing of the money is difficult, is complex, and it does require great forensic skill. And the trial itself will be a complicated issue, a long leading of difficult evidence and many transactions. That being said, again, they've had a long time to prepare for this trial. And they must be ready for trial if they've arrested Molefe and Singh. And we look forward to the trial proceeding already this year. The sooner, the better. Justice delayed is certainly justice denied. And the older evidence becomes, the more difficult it becomes to present it. So I hope that they're ready. And there can be really no good excuse for not being ready. And I look forward to this trial beginning. It's one of the first state captive trials to begin. And let's see how it goes. I look forward to see how the matter is dealt with.
With your prosecutorial background, Glenis, I must ask you, I heard that the lawyers of the accused today asked that the draft documents in this case must be read at least 2 weeks prior to the next appearance in October. Is that a normal request?
Certainly, it's a normal request. I would have expected them to want the details for a lot longer than 2 weeks, though. Bearing in mind the complexity of these issues, bearing in mind the convoluted transactions, one would expect the state to make a full copy of the docket available as soon as is possible. It would prevent unnecessary applications for delays, unnecessary applications for preparation. So, 2 weeks is not a long time. And in any complex commercial matter, you would certainly provide those documents well before any trial date, so that you can, so that everyone has the opportunity to prepare properly.
Yeah, let's remind our viewers, I'm going to bring you in, Brett, that in this particular matter, out of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, when we come to Transnet and Eskom, I mean, Karam mentioned Eskom a little bit earlier, is that there are more charges that could be brought against these two gentlemen, Molefe and Singh. So we might be in for a long haul, depending where these various cases might intersect, because they were executives of these two state-owned enterprises.
Well, yeah, the names have certainly appeared in other state-owned entities, or corruption allegations around other state-owned entities like Eskom, as we said. And so those charges would be, I imagine, a whole set of separate charges. And so these accused could, if they are indeed charged in relation to Eskom or other state-owned entities, or other corruption, they could be in multiple cases or multiple trials at the same time. Yes.
And is there a risk, therefore, I'm just asking, Karam, I don't know what your thoughts are as corruption, that because of what Brett has just said, that this is going to really be a long, drawn-out process. You mentioned the issue of accountability and consequence. Zondo Commission has done its part. Now the investigative directorate of the NPA and the Hawks seemingly moving in these kind of matters. Now, with all the other issues that might come, charges around it, should we brace ourselves for a very long, drawn-out legal battle here?
Well, I think that remains to be seen. We do have the presumption of innocence, and it's a criminal case, so they're going to need to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And we know that criminally accused have abused court processes in the past to try to draw these cases out. So, the NPA really has to show their mettle now. They don't have because the NPA itself was captured, we don't have a track record over the last 10, 15 years of these types of complicated cases with multiple accused going quickly. We had the VBS case, but in the VBS case, we had a key accused who turned state witness, which I think helped facilitate that matter being expedited. So perhaps you're right, Dan. Perhaps we have to brace ourselves, but let's now give the NPA all the support they require, and hopefully they can drive this first set of charges successfully without too much delay.
Yeah. Glenis, you've said as a DA that you are looking forward to more investigation in terms of the 42 billion rand, the total amount of the overall procurement. This 93 million, obviously, will just be a part of it. How critical is it that we get to the bottom of the 42 billion rand procurement matter?
Well, of course, Dan, it's absolutely vital. It's a huge amount of money. It was South Africans' taxpayers' money. It's money that should have been spent on infrastructure and uplifting the lives of South Africans. It has been stolen and squandered by a select few, and they must be held accountable for that. But B, we must recoup as much of that money as we can and put it back where it belongs, in the fiscus, where it can be spent on uplifting the lives of ordinary South Africans, for which it was originally intended. So we must get that money back. The Asset Forfeiture Unit must work in conjunction with the Investigative Directorate, and they must freeze and eventually seize those assets.
Yeah. How confident, Brett, should we be in terms of that reality of seizing the assets? Because when people talk about these cases, and I've been engaging with several people, say it's one thing to be arresting people, but these people, if they are found guilty, because remember, it's innocent until proven guilty, as Karam was reminding us, if they're found guilty, their assets should be seized. I mean, I recall reading with the Gupta leaks a few years ago that in this particular case of this 42 billion rands worth of the tender at Transnet, the Gupta link companies were promised about 9 billion rand, I think, in kickbacks, and they only got paid 3 billion rand of that money by 2016. So monies were paid out.
Look, I mean, the extent to which we can be confident is difficult to comment on. Every case is different, and what has happened with the funding and the assets is unknown to me. So I'm not sure how confident we can be. But I think if we look at in the last year or two, we've seen some fairly high level interventions, attachments of assets, the securing of the freezing of bank accounts. So we've seen from both the Asset Forfeiture Unit, the NPA, and the SIU that there's been some success in freezing of assets and with the intention of reclaiming them. So I think that based on recent events, we can feel somewhat hopeful, but whether we can feel confident is something that I don't think we can predict.
Yeah, we're just going to have to watch. I'm sure Corruption Watch, Karam, you're going to be watching this case very closely.
Absolutely, Dan. As with all of the, particularly all the recommendations for further investigations and the systemic recommendations coming out of the Zondo Commission, this provides a bit of a template for us now in terms of focusing our fight against corruption over this next period. So we will be watching this one closely.
Thank you very much, Karam Singh from the Corruption Watch, and also thanks Brett Heron from the Good Party, the leader of the Good Party, and finally to the DA's Glenis Breitenbach. Thank you very much for your time and your views. This hour is the big story of the day coming out of court today in this Transnet matter. Thank you very much here on Today.